Thank you, Shelby, and thank you to our great presenters. I love everything we've heard. I'm John Lee from Camas, and I'd like to piggyback off something Liz just said. The Glenn Jackson Bridge actually opened in December of 1982, and at that point in time, they actually had a plan to build the next bridge. You were exactly right. I'm an airline pilot. I travel all over the world. I love chasing Kevin and all the amazing places he's been. Every major city in the world has a ring road, a way to avoid the congested inner corridor. And I've been in many all over the world as an airline pilot, and it only makes sense because not everybody wants to go through the core of downtown. And in that plan, we had a ring road. We built the eastern half of the ring first, the I-205 corridor, but they already had plans for the western half that was going to connect northern Vancouver out to Hillsborough and then connect with I-5 down in the Tigard area. And sadly, our regional transportation people refused to build the western half of that ring. Kevin, when you were here with Linda Fick 2 or 3 years ago at that great presentation, I remember you talked about the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room for us on I-5 is the Rose Quarter. And sadly, until Oregon chooses to fix that, any money we spend on I-5 is going to deliver negligible results. And that ties into Brad Perkins. Thank you very much, Brad. You talked about the $450 million Oregon is proposing to spend on the Rose Quarter. And they are. A very simple question. In the plan currently on the table, how many new lanes of through traffic is Oregon going to add to Interstate 5 for the Rose Quarter? Unbelievably, the answer is 0. They're going to spend $450 million and not add any new capacity to Interstate 5 and the Rose Quarter. They're going to extend what they call auxiliary lanes, which are lanes to merge on and off of the freeway. But in the end, they will only have 2 through lanes going north and south. What are they going to spend the bulk of the money on? I've not been able to find a breakout, but they are going to build 2 lids across Interstate 5 from one side of Interstate 5 to the other. They're going to put bike paths, they're going to put busways, they're going to put little parks. Very nice things, but that's where the bulk of the money is going to go. And so when you hear people talking about focusing on I-5, the sad reality is if you ask about, well, how are they going to fix the elephant in the room? They'll say, oh, Oregon's got to fix, they're going to spend $450 million. The sad answer is they're going to add no new capacity, and therefore it's not a fix. That 2-mile, 2-lane section of I-5 at the Rose Quarter has the highest accident rate of any section of road in Oregon. According to a 2012 City of Portland study, it has 3 times the accident rate of the Terwilliger curves. Some of the studies that they talk about, so Rose Quarter 300%, Terwilliger curves 100%. Some of the studies they talk about in the 2012 City of Portland say they're going to reduce that accidents by 30 to 50%. Okay, if they cut 300% down to 150%, you still have the highest accident rate of any section of road in Oregon. I applaud any additions to safety, but you really need to fix the problem. So the easy answer is we need more ways to cross the Columbia River, more new transportation corridors for people to get where they're going. Thank you so very much. They're all neat, wonderful ideas.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I didn't realize we had such an attractive representative here. I'd have probably been at more meetings. I guess I'll ask but answer. Does any of you know who Rufus Wood is? No, ma'am. Portland today would probably be under 6 feet of water if it hadn't been for the visionary of a Wenatchee newspaper man to build Grand Coulee Dam. And he had lots of opposition, and a lot more than you people have, I think. 150 years ago, this nation needed an intercontinental railroad.
Could you hold the microphone closer to your mouth? We can't hear you.
Oh, that was probably a good,
Not working.
that was probably a plus, not a minus. Did you all hear my question about Rufus
Yeah.
Wood? Yeah, okay. Anyway, he was a newspaper man, as was I, in Federal Way, Washington, in South King County, when they were building I-5, and I heard all of the same problems. Where's the interchange going to be, blah, 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 blah. I remember interviewing, after I had hung him in effigy, the state transportation guy, Buggy. I said, why are you building the I-5 down by halfway to Portland first and not where the congestion is in Seattle? And his answer was, I want to keep public support of the project. Keep them parked out there for a couple hours in the traffic and I'll get their support. And that's a bit of information I passed on. 100 years ago, the railroad needed to get across the Columbia River at Wishram. 100 years ago, they built that. It took them one summer. The Intercontinental Railroad was built in about 6 years of actual construction. You guys have been talking about it for how long? I don't know, too long. So what you need is courage, what you need is guts, and I wish you good luck. But I'll look here at my notes and see if I've overlooked money. Okay? If you look around the world, and I'm involved with a big project, about $5 billion, with Taiwan to promote the Matsu Island and put a city there and a casino project there. We need to transport about 100,000 people a day. It took one translator, 1 day, with private money in Hong Kong to solve the problem. You need the people who will pull it. Macau, which is 7 times bigger than Las Vegas, moves over 30 million people a year. That 20 miles across water, all with private money. So if there's a dollar there to be made, believe me, there'll be the private industry to build it. So thank you for the time and the effort, the good work. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Swaron. I'm from Portland. I've been following this issue for quite a while. Thank you for the ideas here. What I have researched is bridge types, and I believe metal bridges are really more appropriate for our area. And if you cross the Fremont Bridge, that's what's called a tied arch bridge, and it has vertical rods that hold the road deck up. Well, what the latest generation is called a network tied arch, and it has diagonal cabling from the arch that holds the road. So these are very cost effective. So when we're talking about costs, this is a type of bridge that we really need to look at. They began in Germany in 1962, and now there's a few dozen around the world, and the East Coast has had some built recently. Lake Champlain in New York had a 2-lane bridge, a network tied arch, and Kentucky has had 2 built in the lakes, what they call the lakes region, and these are very affordable. So just off the top of my head, I'm saying a bridge over the Columbia would probably be in the $500 million range at this present time if it was built now. That's because it's tall, it's high off the water, and fairly long span. But that means that we could do more than one. So possibly a west route an east route at Camas to Troutdale could be feasible. The other thing that I think is important to note is people talk about a western ring road. There is a concept called the Northern Corridor that's under some scrutiny in Washington County. It's far from being a done deal, but this would be in the vicinity of Cornelius Pass Road connecting US 26 to US 30 and to the Rivergate Loop. So this is a lot simpler than a big expressway. So when we're trying to keep the costs down, those are two of the things that I think are important, is a simpler western route and then bridges that are affordable. If you have a chance, look up Network Tied Arch, because this is a very cost-effective design for bridges, and the fabrication is simple, so it makes everything a lot simpler. The construction is simpler. The seismic protection is better too, because a metal bridge can be isolated from the support piers. They have what are called isolation bearings that kind of wiggle in an earthquake. So those are very, it's an innovative solution to help protect the investment that we would be making in infrastructure. But I think two routes are really achievable if they're fairly compact and short routes. So Camas to Troutdale could be a route, and the other route would be, like I say, US 26 to US 30, and then on the west side of Vancouver, we're kind of picking on Fruit Valley Road, but you know, that would be sort of the most basic alternative. I don't know what else to say. Oh, the other thing is, I really think we need to have a good mass transit system. I've done articles on double-decker buses. This is a very cost-effective solution, can move people, and takes very little political planning to get it going. Up in Everett, Washington, they did a double-decker system and up and running in just a few years. So I'm very concerned about safety. I think something like that, we really need to promote safe operation of the vehicles. But anyway, basically, I think that looking at the network tied arch would be a real good prospect for us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I've been living in Vancouver for most of my life, and I want to thank the panel because this is the first time I've actually heard people that seem to want to solve the problem and represent it by putting this together. So I've been crossing the I-5 bridge daily for 30 years. First to go to school at University of Portland, go pilots, and later I was doing the high-tech commute, going from Vancouver to Hillsborough. And when I went to school and I was registering, they said, oh, you're from Vancouver, you have to cross that bridge, that's so horrible. And I'd say, actually, it takes me about 25 minutes. And they'd look at me and say, if you get there before the traffic backs up from Lombard to Delta Park and then across the bridge, you're golden, it's very quick. And she said, wow, I live in Portland and it takes me 35 minutes. Later, when I started working out in Hillsborough, I thought, okay, it's time for me to move. It seems kind of silly to be traveling that far at that point because it's a little bit further, but freeway most of the way, it was taking me 35 minutes. And then I tried to find an apartment in Beaverton, and looking for an apartment at an address you don't know in Beaverton, 5 p.m. in the wintertime, is horrible. It would take me an hour to get there. And I was in that community. It was crazy. And so I chose to continue to live in Vancouver, which was my home. And they'd look at me and they'd say, how long does it take you to get there? That's horrible. You have to cross that bridge. And it's like, well, if I time it right, it's 35 minutes, but when traffic is bad, it's 45 minutes. And they'd say, wow, I live in Forest Grove, and it takes me 25 minutes. And I'm like, I get to live where I want. Well, you fast forward to recently, just before I retired, I took early retirement. It was taking me 3 to 4.5 hours a day to get to and from work. It was horrible. And of course that sparked a lot of conversations at work, and they immediately say it's your own fault because you didn't vote to replace the I-5 bridge. And I'd be like, what? Okay, I'm working with a bunch of engineers. It's like, guys, get this. I get across the bridge. Often, even on a day that the commute was 2 hours, I could cross the bridge doing 35 or 40, which felt really fast because I had been in that backup, that funnel in Vancouver for quite a while. And then I'd hit the Slough Bridge, and then we'd stop. And honestly, I tell my wife that the Portland traffic is horrible and it's dangerous. If you're on the road like me, it's dangerous because you stop and then you go, and everybody drives like heck, maybe 35 miles an hour, and immediately everybody stops. And if you're not quick enough, you rear end someone. I can show a stretch of road, and it wasn't actually on I-5, it's on 26 and 405, where I've been rear-ended 3 times in a mile and a half. One time totally. The other car, mine was brand new, so it wasn't total, but it was out of commission for 6 months while I was waiting for parts. But that's not the safety that really is impactful, because I do believe this is more a political problem and not a technical problem. You guys could argue about which solution is best. Because you see, when I get across the bridge, and if you have a GPS or Waze, you look at it, it tells you, get off the freeway. That 40-mile commute, because I now live in Ridgefield, would take over 2 hours. And if you do the math, you're going like 20 miles an hour. So the GPS says, get off the freeway and start driving through people's neighborhoods. Drive through school zones. All you have to do is beat that 20 miles an hour. And so I really don't know how to solve the problem, because all along people have been saying, it's the bridge, just replace it. And that doesn't fix the problem. And if you drive that bridge, you know it. It's the Portland traffic. It's what they're doing to the whole system. And so you have to tell them, it's safety for everyone. It's safety for your kids. Because yes, sometimes I couldn't stand it, and I would have to drive through the neighborhoods, and I know other commuters that do that route and wouldn't do it. Because nobody likes to drive through school zones, particularly when you're already stressed, you've had a long day. You don't want to have to worry about avoiding kids. And I remember one time just before I got a ticket, I was already on the road for 2 hours trying to get somewhere, and somebody was standing in the street. It's like, okay, I'll stop and I'll wait. And he just stood there and waited. And actually I was the second person because the car before me finally left, and then it was my turn. And it's those sort of things that cause problems in safety, and it's caused by congestion. And we need some problems or some solutions that fix that problem, and it's not replacing the bridge. Thank you.
I want to thank all the speakers. It was very enlightening. I came here expecting to see a hotbed of people wanting to rebuild the current I-5 bridges and expend thousands of millions of dollars rebuilding the gut through Vancouver and Portland, and turning it into something like you said, a 20-lane freeway, just spilling out black soot to get the town dirtier. I was going to talk about building what I would call the West Metro bypass. It's pretty much exactly like presented here on building by the bridge. I know
West
about that.
Express.
Pardon me?
The West Express.
The West Express. I had another name for that. I was going to call it the West Metro Ring Road, which the gentleman mentioned. Ring roads being all over the world except here. And I appreciate the fact that they talk about how our transportation system is laid out, everything in downtown Portland. You got to go through it. It means that many of us don't even bother going down to downtown Vancouver. You got to avoid the traffic. Anyway, here's what I was saying. Build a modern West Metro road and divert traffic through trucks and business and traffic. Allow Metro residents better access to jobs and business opportunities. allow easier access to clean, to the ocean beaches and recreational opportunities. Reduce transportation costs to help create more job opportunities.
I guess we're kind of the voice of the people. We represent 6,000 taxpayers in Clark County. Clark County Citizens United, we're firm supporters of 2 more bridges, both west and east. When I talk with our constituents and those folks who have conversation over these kinds of projects, they all are telling us we need 2 more bridges. I think I've been very impressed. I came to become educated so I can share this information with our supporters. I've been very impressed with all of these people who have given these presentations because it's very well thought, very well engineered. I'm really disappointed that Dozer Days is going on right now because there's a lot of the construction people that are supporters of Clark County Citizens United who in fact, one of them is on our board of directors of the construction companies that would be working with these projects. So I'm disappointed. I hope that they'll be able to see some videos or we'll be able to get those folks on board. I know there's 2 in particular that build our roads for the most part in this area, 2 or 3 construction companies. So I think it's important for them to see these sorts of things. The taxpayers are the ones you're talking about, really. They're the ones that's going to foot the bill for all of this, even if you have a private-public process. And I remember when in 2008, I believe, I was on the C-Tran Advisory Council, and they were proposing the light rail at that time. One of the CEOs from a very large construction company came to us and said, I need to tell you about this. And he said he was at a dinner meeting and he had people from the city of Vancouver come to him and say, we are going to get the light rail. And he said, well, how are you going to do that? He said, well, we've got a private-public partnership. And he said, well, how much? They say, we already got $900 million that we've got pledged for that light rail. And he said that the voters said no. And they said, we don't have to listen to the voters. And he said, they asked him if he was the CEO of this large company, asked him if he was interested in the project. He said, I'm going to go with the voters. So I think it's important to know that it's the public that's paying for this, whether you have a private or a public situation. They're the people that would be thrilled to see this information. They are the people that have rejected light rail because they know the cost, because they know that it's not going to help them. They know it's not going to solve the transportation problem. But if they saw these things, they can then vision within themselves, gee, I wouldn't mind paying for this because this is something that's really going to help. So I'm hoping Liz will expand on this, and I thank her so much for picking up on this, realizing there's got to be something done. One bridge that feeds Mexico to Canada is ridiculous. And having land also in the state of Arizona, I'm watching Phoenix do tremendous things with their transportation systems. New freeways, the I-11 is going through. It's because when people see the bottlenecks, the problems they have, they see they need solutions. And why we have such a problem here, it's anyone's guess, but hopefully Liz will start opening the conversation among all of us to get the solutions done. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Darlene Johnson, and my husband and I own Woodland Truck Line, and we're very much in favor of additional crossings, and we're not opposed to a tunnel either. So, but I think there needs to be one on the west side and probably one on the east side. The west side would probably help us the most, wouldn't you say, Jim?
Yes.
Yeah. And everything everybody has said, I agree with, but I want to add one other thing to it, is, you know, we serve Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and a little bit of Idaho. And, you know, you're talking about money. And everything that you see in this room at one time was in a truck. The cost of transporting these things is expensive. When you have congestion like you have, somebody's got to pay for it. It doesn't, I mean, every single person in this room is paying for that. It's just hidden. We got to make it aware that this is a cost that everybody is paying. You know, we travel through Oregon, so we go through the TriMet district. We pay a tax on our drivers' wages as we go through that district. Because of that, Jim drives once in a while. Whenever he looks at the TriMet bus, he counts the number of people in it. Very few. Very few. We need to have congestion relief. And we have horrible congestion down here. We have horrible congestion in Seattle. And no one seems to be trying in our Department of Transportation to relieve it. I believe that one statement that says, we want everybody so congested that they'll pay for any tax, is a very true statement, as it was then, as it is today. The other thing is we need to get together and do some private partnerships. We do a lot with the government. We're probably one of the most highly regulated industries in the country. And we have yet to find a government entity that works as efficiently as the private. You can add profit onto the private tenfold and you're not going to get to what it costs you to do it through government. And so and you know, the other thing is a lot of times we've heard we haven't had that experience because we lived all our life in Washington. But you know, in Texas, they build roads, and when they have a toll, and when they're paid for, the toll goes away. I have yet to see a toll go away in our state.